Hi there, and welcome to the Multiply You podcast, where we showcase top experts in their space and reveal all the secrets you need to know to multiply you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Austin Clark here with the Multiply You podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we have got an incredible guest, really good friend of mine, Robert Snyder, and just really can't wait to ask him a couple of things that I think will provide just tons of value to everybody. So really excited to be able to introduce him. This episode, it's brought to you by Pest Control. One of our main focuses right now is growth. We've been having a tremendous amount of success with that the last, really since we've been in business, but specifically the last 2 to 3 years. It's just been incredible, and we're really grateful for the work that we've got. We grow through all the normal ways like SEO and PPC, advertising, paid advertising, social. But more specifically, recently, we've been growing and experiencing growth via acquisition. And so if you know anybody specifically in the Arizona market that's looking to exit, we've had a tremendous amount of success being able to help business owners in the pest space kind of with that next phase of their life, retiring or whatever the next thing is. The one of the most recent deals we did, I think that it really epitomizes the pest industry in that it is a smaller company, really respected brand. Maybe 3, 4, 5 trucks on the road, about $500,000 in business. And Randy, the gentleman that previously owned this company at the time, he wasn't really looking to get out. He was getting up there in age and knew that there was the next chapter. And so long story short, we got connected. The rest is history. He's golfing more as he should be doing. We paid him handsomely for the company, and that so far has been a really good, smooth transition. And so people can reach out to me directly. You can call or text me on my cell. It's 480-254-9730. You can email me directly at aclark@moxiepestcontrol.com. It's aclark@moxiepestcontrol.com. Thanks again for tuning in. Really excited to introduce Robert. We talked for about a half hour before we kind of made this thing go live, and this thing really could go for 4 hours, but we've got other commitments and meetings, and so we're not going to do that. Don't disconnect now. But Robert is one of the top reps around when it comes to chemical distribution, and he would never tell you that because he's humble, but I'm not, and so I'll tell you that about Robert. He's incredible. He's been a great resource and a great friend, and I just am really excited about the things that he'll be able to share with you, whatever industry you're in, to be able to work even better with some of your vendors and some of your distributors. Robert Snyder, he works for Target Specialty based in Tempe, Arizona. And he's a product sales representative for them for the structural, fumigation, animal health, and vector business sectors. His territory consists of Arizona, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Utah. Robert has an extensive background in the pest control industry with over 25 years of experience in operations, sales, acquisitions, and technical service. Robert has held technical and leadership positions in his career, overseeing multiple state operations, contract administration, business development initiatives, sales, and technical teams for both residential and commercial market sectors. Robert holds an ACE, which is an Associate Certified Entomologist credential. Very, very difficult to be able to get. I think the paperwork, Robert, is like 4 inches thick just to fill out the application, and then you actually have to know it. And you do. And I've never really done the math on it, but it's got to be something like 0.00% of all certified applicators anywhere achieves that type of benchmarks, and so it's incredible. Robert's currently licensed with the Arizona Department of Agriculture Pest Management Division and has held simultaneous qualifying license in Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Oregon, Texas, Utah, and Washington State. Robert is also a family man, been married for 20 years tomorrow. Congratulations, Robert. Congratulations to you and your wife. And has got 2 boys that he loves running around the outdoors with, hunting, fishing, breathing a lot of fresh air. Robert, welcome to the show. Thank you for agreeing to be on. We joked earlier that you're not willing to be on because you don't want to do this, but that you've agreed to be on. And so I appreciate you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Austin. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Good. Well, hey, let's just jump right on into it then. Tell us a little bit about where you've been, some of your path, some of your story. You've been in the business since 1995. You didn't start at Target. You started at a pest company like a lot of people do. Maybe we can start there or start before, but tell us a little bit about your path and story.
Yeah, so I was going to college and working one of those dead end jobs, we like to call them, at a factory here in Arizona. And a buddy of mine said, "Hey, there's a pest control company looking to hire." Pest control, my God. Yeah, dude, sounds good. So I called the guy and went in for an interview, and they hired me the same day. We didn't have to go through all the HR process that we do these days, but it was a pretty quick process. And I think it was a week later I was on board and working with the guys. That's kind of where everything started. I started as a technician out in the field doing termite work and a little bit of pest control here and there for residential customers. And gradually over time, everything's just evolved. Working my way up as a service manager, operations manager, then a general manager, so on and so forth like that. But it all started in my buddy's little apartment in '95.
How about that? So, I mean, I think that your path is obviously unique, but how is it that they say in pest control, people don't go looking to get into pest control, right? Pest control finds them, and that seems to be the case. The case with you, you know what I mean? Not really looking, and there was just an opportunity.
Yeah, I tell you what, that is the truest statement you'll probably ever find. Most people aren't looking to get into the pest control industry. It finds you. And I tell people, it finds you, and it's somewhat of a black hole. You're not going to get out of it. So embrace it, make the best of it, own it. It can be a lucrative place for you to work or career for that matter. I have one friend in 26 years that wanted to do pest control from the time he was a kid. And I've never met anybody since, and I may never meet anybody again who wanted to be a kid. But there's one out there. I know there's one. I'm not that person, but it's been a lucrative adventure for my family. For a lot of people that I know in the industry, I've made a lot of lifetime friends through the industry. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't change anything. I really wouldn't. I love the industry.
Well, and first of all, it's good to know that there's at least one person in the world that exists that planned on this since that they were small. That's comforting. But I think that you nailed it. You're right. Once people are in, it is, I think, kind of hard to get out of because there's just so much learning to do and so many different places that it can take you. I mean, we'll talk more about some of your path, but you can do what you're doing currently, working in chemical sales and product sales and distribution. You can work inside of a pest control company, and the roles that exist inside of pest control companies are, I mean, there's thousands of them, right? You can do field work. Even in the field, there's dozens and dozens of positions. Are you a specialty kind of person? Do you do termite? Do you do commercial? Do you do industrial? Do you do, what do you do out there? And then, I mean, administratively, there's all the roles that you might be able to think that, exist, what exists when it comes to billing. I mean, accounts receivable, collection, sales, retention, it just goes on and on and on. And, I look at, you can get into distributing, you can get into continuing education, you can get into, I've always been really impressed by Eric Payson, who is just a super bright guy. I think that he's got 10 bachelor's degrees at least. But
his PhD.
There you go. Yeah. And his PhD, he's probably got 10 of those too, and here is a gentleman and, that has dedicated his life to the biology. There's so much biology and science. I know, we've kind of talked every once in a while. The other person that comes to mind is Sylvia. Is it Kenmere?
Kenmere, correct.
Yeah. And so kind of a similar type thing with Eric, just really, and I think she's done some continuing education for us over the years, but just very, very, very knowledgeable. So it is a black hole, and there's so many different paths that you can go down.
Yep, absolutely. And you know, the beautiful thing about our industry is you can start down one path and take a complete right or left turn and lead you down another road, and you'll just continue going. The opportunities are really endless in whatever company you're in. Um, Starting out as a technician, a lot of people do it either in high school or college or something like that. They dedicate some time and they get a feel for it. You can make a great living doing it. And then not all, but some, they fall in love with it. And the customer interaction or the company that they work for or somebody, there's camaraderie there. And once you have that camaraderie, it's really hard to leave something like that if you're in a good situation or a good environment. So that's been everything I've experienced in my career. I'm not one to jump companies, and I haven't done that. I mean, I've spent long, extended periods of times with companies in my past. And I'm not one to go from one guy to the next guy to the next guy because fortunately, I've been surrounded by very good people. And I think that's a huge part of staying somewhere for a long period of time. People work there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that's kind of how it happened with me. I was never looking to do pest, was, in the industry 4 or 5, maybe 6 years, thought it would be a good thing to do through college, kind of like you said. And then really when the rubber hit the road and it was time to get a real job, I wanted to be like a firefighter or a policeman or something really cool, not like what I'm doing now. It was exactly like you said. I kind of looked around and saw the people that I was working with really enjoyed what I was doing. And it's like, man, I guess going and doing something different could be better, but it also could not. And, so that was, 10 years ago or so. And so here we are. So there you are, Robert, 1995, living the good life. You get hired on at this pest company. Are you there for a year, 5 years? What did that look like? You started out doing termite work, so you kind of got some of your technical, practical, in-field, hands-on experience there. What else did you do while you were there? How long were you there? And then what was next?
So I was there. The division that I worked for actually sold to a company that I ended up running. So I stayed on board through the acquisition. And within that time frame, so I went from a termite technician to a pest control technician, to service manager, to operations manager, to general manager. So, I mean, I did every job within that company from a service standpoint up to operations, and then that led into a much more lucrative thing for me and my family. But yeah, we sold in '98 that division, and then I was with them until 2004 when we sold again. And then I went and started another company in Arizona for somebody, and that company's still running to date. And from there, I went to a company based out of the Pacific Northwest. It was with them basically up until I came to Target 8 years ago. So
Okay.
I don't change jobs. I haven't had experience with multiple different companies. I have from a competitive standpoint as well as from a consultative standpoint. So I've seen quite a few different mantras, if you will, within the company. And yeah, that's kind of my story of how everything led up to here. And being on the distribution side, if you don't mind, take a moment on that. It's been great. And the reason it's been great, my passion is helping people. It's helping people, helping companies, and growing companies. Those are things that I love to do. It's all based on business principles and your own principles. But now I get to interact with, instead of one company I work for, I've got 125 that I can interact with and help and somewhat mentor if need be or whatever. But I can actually, yeah, I can kind of spread it out a little bit, and I get to help more than just one company, and I love that. I love seeing the different workings of different companies, how they operate, what their goals are, and help contribute to that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad that you say that because it's been interesting to me as I've had maybe a little bit more time the last 2 years and reaching out a little bit more to make some more friends in the industry. It's a great industry. And from my observation, the chemical sales and distribution is a lot of the same way. We've mostly exclusively used you and Target the last 5 or so, maybe 6 or so years, and that's been an incredible relationship. Previously, we used different companies that, for the time, were incredibly helpful and valuable. And there's even been times where you've kind of just given such great, honest counsel. I remember kind of when the pandemic a year ago was starting, one of the products they jacked up the rate like 20%, and that's not normal. And I was pissed. I was like, Robert, what? I was mad at you, like you were the one that raised the rate 20%. I'm like, Robert, what's going on here, man? I'm gonna write the president of that company and send him a nasty whatever. You know what? I'm just not going to use that product anymore. And you said, yeah, I agree. You shouldn't. And that was interesting to me, coming from, you know what I mean? You've got some skin in the game there. It didn't help you to share that with me. You know what I mean? I still think that we buy that chemical, you know what I mean? So just paying 20% more, giving it to the man. But, it's been interesting that if, to see in your space, and especially through COVID, some, the backlog and some of that supply chain, and hey, we're not getting that shipment in for this amount of time. And to really see pest companies in the space and also chemical companies band together. Hey, we're short on this, but I know that they've got this over there. And so maybe you place that order with them this week or this month or that kind of thing. And I think like pre-pandemic, things were that way. I think certainly during it and hopefully after, there's a lot more of that type of collaboration. But it's, kind of been an interesting thing just to see and observe. So 95 to 2005, 6-ish, you're cutting your teeth, learning the technical aspect, working your way up through a couple of different companies. I mean, taking one company through the process of a total acquisition, growing the next company, staying on board. You're getting experience, again, all the experience that you need in the field, operations management. And so that was about a decade. And then from there, is it from there that you then went into chemical sales? And would it be fair to say, the last 10 years or so has been doing that?
Yeah. So I've been with Target Specialty Products now for 8 years. So prior to that, everything's been in operational side, primarily in the work.
And Robert, so how does that happen? I mean, do you get headhunted? Do you say, hey, I know what this looks like and tastes like, right? I'm gonna go on the other side. You know what I mean? Were you looking, or how does that happen normally?
For me, it was something I had been contemplating for a long period of time. There was no real headhunting, if you will. There's mention in passing, little things here and there, having conversations with some of your colleagues and or manufacturer reps or distribution reps, so on and so forth like that. And it's always intrigued me. And it's intrigued me from the standpoint that I can help a lot of other people instead of doing what I'm doing just for one company. So that, and kind of funny, Austin, I tried for almost 10 years to get into distribution or manufacturing. I mean, my gosh, it's one of those jobs that if someone doesn't retire or unfortunately pass, there's really not a lot of opportunity or opening for that. So I waited and bided my time, and when the opportunity was right, I took advantage of it. So it's something I wanted to do, like I said, 10 years prior to actually being able to do so. And, all we talk about is the grass greener on the other side. Well, in my humble opinion, I think it is. I like the.
All right, I've heard enough. Where do I send my application? Where do I send my application? You guys would never hire me. It would take me 30 years for you guys to even look at my application.
Look at it. I don't know if we'd accept it, but we'd look at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's kind of how everything unfolded for me for the distribution side, and I've been here for 8 years and continue. Honestly, I don't foresee any change. If I can retire here, this is where I plan all the time.
So. Yeah. Incredible. Well, and from what I understand too, you've taken that. I mean, just all of your experience, all of your education, all of the. I mean, really, just everything, and continued to do those same sorts of things where you are at Target Specialty now. Starting with a maybe smaller geographical territory and a smaller financial pool or book of business. And over the last 7 or 8 years, that seems to have, both of them have seemed to have expanded a lot.
Yeah, yeah. There's no doubt. And I think it goes back to a simple principle. If you're in it for the right motivation, and I'm a self-motivated person, don't get me wrong, but I don't look at it from a monetary standpoint. When I go out to help customers, I look at it from a consultative standpoint and what is going to best serve you in the future. Back to your point of the product that went up astronomically over the year, and you had some choice words which were all wonderful and well accepted. But that's not what I'm about. I'm not here to, and I feel that way about most people in the distribution space. We're not here to gouge anybody. We're not here to make a huge profit off anybody. Yeah, we're not a nonprofit, of course, neither are the people we deal with. But it's in our best interest to always steer you in the right direction that's going to give you longevity, instead of doing something today that you're going to regret tomorrow. So that's the way I look at everything when I approach anything, whether it's a brand new customer I've never met before. How can I help them for longevity versus something today? If everybody has immediate needs, and we're definitely going to address those. But what's your long-term plan? How can I help you achieve your long-term plan? That's really what makes me tick and motivates me and allows me to help other customers. That's what I am.
Yeah, we were at you and I a little dinner thing a couple of weeks ago, and I shared a story about my dad, and some of the way that you think and approach sales and relationships is a lot of the same way. My dad's worked, I think, maybe for the last close to 15, 20 years for a safety company in town in Phoenix, you feel for when it's good, it's good. When it's not so good, sometimes it's still good, sort of thing. But you got these business owners just grinding, right? The cents and nickels, and when what you sell is a commodity, right? There's clients of my dad's and perhaps of yours too that could get the exact same product somewhere for a couple cents or a couple of bucks cheaper, right? And so, what is that competitive advantage? What is that short-term and long-term relationship? What does that look like? And the proof is in the pudding, right? The proof is in the pudding. And so you've had great success expanding geographically and that book of business. And it's just shooting people straight and doing what's right by them. And I've seen that over and over and over again with you, and I really appreciate that. So that's a lot of the professional stuff. Tell us a little bit more then about Target. They sent you away for 10 years, but before they would, say, okay, fine, this guy's persistent. Maybe he could, sell something. But what has your experience been like at Target? How have you seen the company evolve? I think you've already touched on maybe what keeps you there. What are some of your biggest challenges? What I mean? What's life like at Target?
Sure. So Target, first of all, it's a great place to work. Obviously, I'm here. I would go elsewhere if it weren't, but it's a great place to work. What sets us apart, really, and it's somewhat cliche, but it's true. It's the people. I don't stay places long term unless I enjoy who I'm working with. Which we have a great people that we're surrounded by. But more than that, I would say the experience that our people bring to our customers. I think that's a real key component when we look at competitors or anybody from your space, our space, whatever space you may be in. What value do you bring to your customers? Because like you said before, I mean, you're selling somewhat of a commodity, right? You can go buy chemicals from 15, 20 different other places. Why do you buy from Target? Well, you're not really buying from the person. You buy from the person, right? As long as that person brings value and benefits to your company outside of what they can provide for you to do your business on a daily basis, And I think that is really what sets Target apart in our training. You know, we have phenomenal speakers. We're well connected with a lot of the manufacturing reps out there that help us with that as well. Plus, our employees are my colleagues. I would say the vast majority of us have experience in the pest control industry. So, although we may not have been owners or GMs or what have you, I think the majority of us have at least been a service technician or something to have some inkling of what people are dealing with on a daily basis. And I think that experience goes a long way, because you're not just some kid right out of college walking in and saying, hey, I've got these 15 products. Which one do you like? It doesn't really work that way in that space. Granted, I mean, there's online resources and stuff like that. You can go click a couple buttons and buy something. Great, you can do that. What does that get you long term? What if you have an issue with that? Where are you going to be with that? Who do you go to? That's where we come into play, and I think that's what sets us apart, because we're always there for our customers, and our core values really show through. Especially, you know, things go sideways. It happens in every business, and fortunately, not as often, which is good. But when they do, we're always there to support our customers, regardless of what that may be, whether it's a dog eating a bait, mispricing, misbilling, whatever it may be. We're going to do everything in our capability to make sure that someone's taken care of and feels like they're taken care of, versus, oh, you're Moxie, you're customer number 10543, and that's all you want. We don't like that. We like the personal relationship, and that is what I love about Target. Some of the things that we've evolved, I mean, we're trying to go digital. We're behind the times in that regard, but we're trying to get there. It's been a slow and somewhat painful progress, but we're trying to get.
Welcome to 2021, Robert, right? Internet's been around for 20 years. It's about time.
Well, I remember our president took over a few years ago and said, the 80s can have their website back. We need to. This is just a gosh, thank you, because we do need to evolve. Everything wants, you know, high quality, but they want it now. They want it fast. They want it simple. They want it at a click of a button on a smartphone, an iPad, whatever it may be. And to that point, you know, I also think it's misfortunate that communication is somewhat gone awry. There's not a lot of phone conversations. There's not a lot of face-to-face personal conversations. A lot of text message, a lot of email, and stuff like that. And part of me wishes we would get back to let's meet face-to-face. Let's have a handshake. Let's talk on the phone. Let's not just let our phones do the talking on the texting. But we have to cater to that customer, because it's an evolving thing. And I mean, you're a young guy, and your competitors are young. You guys want things quick. That's just the way it is. So we're trying to get to that slowly but surely. The future looks bright, and I'm excited for it. We've got a lot of cool things in the works right now, but I wish it were here today versus down the road. So that's kind of where we're evolving. We're trying to get a lot more digital, get into, I wouldn't say e-commerce, but website friendly, order friendly through the web. Just be a lot more user friendly for us.
Well, I'm glad, a couple of thoughts as you kind of shared some of those things. I'm really glad that you dug a lot more into the details about what makes Target great. Because I was going to press you, because everyone says, oh, it's it's the customer service, it's our people, right? But those things that you listed, I can say as a customer that they're definitely there. And a couple of experiences of mine and my own, we make mistakes too, and we run out of product because someone was mismanaging the product order. John, if you're listening, and I certainly have made those mistakes, and I've made all of the mistakes, and most of them I make 2 or 3 times because I'm a slow learner. But we're in a pinch. We shoot you a text or a call, or call the center. Hey, we've got to have this. Oh yeah, no, we've got to have this in an hour. You know what I mean? And when it's been feasible to make that happen, it's happened. But you guys have certainly bailed us out more than 100 times, where we've either mismanaged or gone through chemical faster than we thought, or whatever else. I'm kind of OCD when it comes to billing, and you and I have been on a couple of email threads where I say, Robert or whoever is on this thread, I'm trying to copy the president of the company, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Joe. I'm trying to copy everyone that'll listen to me. I'm like, hey, I pay my bills. I want my invoice on everything that's outstanding the first of the month. I don't care if it's Christmas, Hanukkah, your mom's birthday, anniversary. I want it so I can pay it. And so, it's been nice to have, different customers have different needs, and if they're able to be catered to, that's great. If not, maybe it's not an ideal customer, but I appreciate those small things that have made my job of running a business simpler and easier, so I can focus on, I don't want to worry about chemical and a chemical bill. I want to go grow a company. And, every minute that I'm working on invoicing is a minute that I'm not working on marketing or growth. You know what I mean? So that's been incredible. I know that you guys went through a rebrand a couple of years ago. I thought that was cool as a customer. And I think it's neat that you guys are getting a lot more into just ease of use and portals and different sorts of things like that, because, I'm 36, and a lot of people that I run around with in the space, they're a little bit younger, a little bit older. And the thing with millennials, man, I think that you might have just missed that cutoff and that terrible label. But you're right. We are impatient. We want it yesterday. Having it tomorrow is just a day late already. And we are technologically driven, and it's just the expectation. On top of that, Amazon's just ruined everything by, you order a pair of shorts or whatever, and before you're done hitting submit, you get a knock on the door, and it's your Amazon guy with your pen, that you ordered or whatever else. And so they've really jacked that up for everyone too. But it's great. People want it. They want it now. Get it to them. You know what I mean? You get invoice, get paid, and life goes on. So next, go ahead.
Just to touch on that Amazon, I mean, yeah, it's a necessary evil, and boy, if they really screwed up everybody's world. But at the same token, look at the bar they've set. My gosh, everybody wants to be Amazon. I mean, if you can do that with your service, with a product, or with whatever, I mean, it is incredible what they've done. And it just amazes me every time you turn around. Even, I'm sure you've dealt with their customer service. I think every customer has, but it's outstanding. It's not, oh, let me look into that. Let me see what I can do. It's okay, we'll get it taken care of, and it's usually done within 5 minutes.
You don't have to be transferred to 10 different departments. It's like first call, first inquiry, resolution. They're going to handle it. I mean, what a model.
Exactly. And, back to that, as far as, target evolving and stuff like that, we're very fortunate. We have autonomy to make decisions. I mean, some of them are better to ask for forgiveness than permission, which is the rule that I live by. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we do have a lot of autonomy to make decisions like that for customers. If we need to do something to make it right, we will. As a matter of fact, I'll give you one example. I had a customer, we ran out of product in Tempe. He needed 2 gallons of one product. I was like, well, I said, I've got it in Vegas. He's like, well, I need it tomorrow by 10 a.m. I said, well, I'll drive over there. I'll pick it up for you. I'll have it to you by 8. He said, you've got to be kidding me. He's like, no, it's only a couple $100. I said, it's not about the product. It's not about the money. I said, you need it. Let me get it taken care of. I drove to Vegas that night, picked it up first thing in the morning, and drove it back and had it to him by 8 o'clock. So we have autonomy to make decisions like that, to do things like that, which is great. So we don't have to go through 50 different people to get an approval saying, you're going to do what? For what? Well, it's the right thing to do. And that's what we want to do. If we can make it happen, we're going to try and make it happen. So,
and when will that customer forget that experience? Never.
Yeah.
Right?
I brought it up several times. I mean, several times. And I'm like, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. I had forgotten about it. And actually, the only reason I bring it up, he brought it up yesterday. So
about that.
Yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. He goes, wow, I appreciate that. I'm like, man, that was quite a while ago, but you're welcome.
Yeah, it's incredible. So next question, and I think that the reason I really like this question is because I think that a little bit of the paradigm needs to be flipped in this kind of relationship, often it's business owner or purchasing manager or the service person that is just looking to be able to say to their vendors, whether it's chemical or safety equipment or vehicles or wraps or whatever, right? Everything that and anything that a business might need to run their business. And I think that some of the current paradigm is, okay, Robert, what can you do for me? How cheap can you get this? How fast can you get it to me? They're offering this, and it's a nickel cheaper on that product and a quarter cheaper on that product. Can you beat it? Because you have to. And then on top of that, what else what are the rebates, that sort of thing. But let's flip that for a minute. And you've got tons of experience, not just in chemical sales, but also being one of those key people on the other side, right? You were in charge of purchasing, and you were the one that was handling the products. You knew what worked well, what didn't work well. And so what can guys or gals like me do, whether it's pest, pool, I mean, our audience is pretty vast as far as the home services go, but what can the decision makers on this end do to work better with you or some of their vendors?
One of the key things that comes top of mind would be, don't assume everything. There's a lot of assumptions made, and I did that when I was running a company, assuming guys sitting in front, well, you're the one making all the money. I mean, I know you got some skin in the game, but you also have some to give, right? So assumptions, and not just with purchasing or products, if you will, but what can we do for you? What can't we do for you? Because there's a lot of assumptions. Well, you guys don't do that. How do you know unless you ask? So for us as a distributor, we're a resource for you. Utilize us as a resource. We want to be alongside you. We're not your enemy. I think that's really important. We're not someone who wants to cause friction. We want to keep things really simple and seamless and not rock the boat for you so that you can focus on your business and your growth and what's important to you. You shouldn't have to worry about your chemicals. You mentioned that earlier. You shouldn't have to worry about that. You shouldn't have to worry about your invoice. That's stuff that should just come automatically and not even a forethought. When it comes to pricing, though, one of the things that I would say people could work on would be, where are we now? What options do we have? Not necessarily, this is the product that I want. I want an extra 10% off or what have you, because I can tell you honestly, there's a lot of times there isn't that percentage to give. I mean, there just really isn't. So that's a misnomer. And for me, coming from your side of the business to this side, when I got on this side, I'm like, oh, they weren't blowing smoke all these years. Okay, I get it. And that's the reason that there's a lot of rebate programs out there and stuff like that. So we want to help you get the most competitive price that you possibly can. But as mentioned before, we're both not only nonprofit organizations, we all have to have something so we can continue to provide the value that we do. So I would say from your standpoint, just an open discussion of how can you help me? This is what I'm looking at. And if it's, hey, I'm looking at reducing cost by 5-10%, okay, well, let's take a look at that. We could work something out. We can figure something out to get you to that point, or at least close to it. If I can't, I'll be honest with you and say, hey, that's not doable, but we could do 2% or something like that. So I think having that open conversation and not going in there with a preconceived notion of, I know they can do this, because that's not always the case, but having that relationship with your vendor and saying, hey, here's what I'm looking at. This is what I think I need. How can you help me? That's going to go much further than, hey, here's your competitor's price. You're 25 cents higher. I need that price, or I'm going to have to lose my business. Because I may not give you the 25 cents, but I could give you something else that's going to be more valuable than 25 cents for your business. Like, what if I reduce your callbacks by 15%?
What? And I'm really glad, Robert, and I got to jump in because I'm really glad that you went there, because I want to save money just like everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But exactly like you said, so I think off the top of my head, I think that we spent close to $500,000 in chemical ish or related costs last year, maybe just maybe a little bit shy of that. And when I'm looking at our P&Ls, I want to see that that's in between a certain percent. And I'm always challenging managers that have purchasing power or are spending, hey, how can we get this down? Or but exactly like you said, not at the cost. Well, okay, what if, and I'm just making this up, what if our percent on our financial statement was, let's just say 8%. Our chemical cost was 8% of what we made last year, any year. Well, would I be happy if that went from 8 to 5? Of course I would, because there would be more money. But I certainly wouldn't if we went to an inferior product or we're using less product that doubled our callbacks. You know what I mean? And so whatever I just saved there in chemical, I just spent 20% more in labor, which is way more expensive than chemical, to have a false sense of feeling good about saving a mythical 3% that was actually a 10% increase because we went out twice as often to customers because the product that we switched to was garbage or not as effective or whatever it was. And so I'm glad, I like saving money as much as the next guy, but cheap, and it doesn't really like help me, right, to say that, but cheap is not better. Cheap is cheap. That's exactly what it is. And so I would also say that, you don't want as a business owner to skimp where you shouldn't. Chemical equipment, you know what I mean? All of that sort of stuff. So
I completely agree with you. I mean, there's a cost of doing business, right? We all know that. How do you want to operate your business? I guess would be where you look at, because if you're looking at cost, if you want to go with brand A product, you may be 5 points higher than your competitor. Okay, so what differentiates you to make up that 5 points? Can you do that? Absolutely, you can. It depends on how you want to handle that. So that's why I say if you have that open relationship with your vendor and you want to have that conversation, there's a lot of creative things that you can do out there. Now, I'm not saying go and open up your P&L or your financial statements for everybody, although I've had customers do that, which is fine. But there are definitely creative ways that can save money while not sacrificing quality. So, and that's one of the key factors. Don't ever sacrifice your quality, because if you do that, it just leads to bad things, bad habits and bad things, and then safety concerns. I mean, there's a long list of that, but I would never forego your quality. If it costs you a little bit more, so be it. You're going to figure out a way to make it up, and if you have that quality, it's virtually negligible. So that's what I would do. I would say a close relationship and ask the question more so than having a preconceived notion, or, hey, my buddy's paying this, why am I paying this? Well, okay, you're paying this, but you realize I get you 15% on the back end on the rebate. He gets nothing. Oh, so I'm actually getting a better deal than you.
Yeah. Rather than assume, hey, Robert's, greasing his pockets, or, you know what I mean? And I love that. Yeah, just don't assume.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I can say. Just don't assume, and have an open, honest conversation. I think most of your vendors or your reps are willing to do that. I don't see why anybody wouldn't be, to be perfectly honest with you, because it benefits. Here's the reality of it. If you grow, I grow, right? If I treat you right and I treat you well, and you have 10 other friends that are in the same space, I'm sure you're going to talk about that at some point. But if I do one thing wrong or lead you or misguide you or something like that, that's going to go tenfold over doing well. So it's always good. Just do the right thing, whether that be quality service, whether that, maintaining your insurance, your workman's comp, whatever it may be. Just do the right thing. If you go down that road, you're really not going to do it. So
yeah, no, thanks for saying so. Super insightful. What about so someone that's getting into, maybe on my side, the pest industry, or someone that's like shopping for whatever industry that they're in? What are some things from your perspective? Like, if you were me and you're shopping, I'm not, don't worry about that. But like, what if you were novice or new, what would you ask, right? Where would you go? How would you start doing homework? What are some of the, questions you would ask to kind of understand if that person or firm can serve you and take care of some of the needs that you've got?
Yeah. So for me personally, I'll talk about the space that we're in, obviously, the pest control industry. The first question I would start, if I were starting my own company, and I've got all my legal stuff taken care of already, because that's going to be your number one priority. You want to be legal. Then it's product. You're looking at product, right? So if I were interviewing somebody to have my business, I would ask them about the products. What are the top three products out there? What are the top three for your exterior services? And I want to know, okay, these are my brand A products. These are the top of the line. Is there a middle of the road? Is there a bottom of the road? And what's the difference between those? Because believe it or not, you do have different levels out there. And efficacy is definitely a concern for us in Arizona or anywhere in the Southwest. Heat's a concern. What's the degradation of that product out there? Is it going to last? If I'm offering a 60-day service, is it going to last 60 days? Is it going to last 30 days? There's a lot of products out there that won't last 30 days. So you need to be more educated than what I like to call Google jockeys out there, which are the majority of our customers. They're gonna know everything or assume they know everything before you ever get to their doorstep. So you need to be well educated. I would say if I'm going to start, I want to be well educated before I start moving forward at all. Being said, one of the huge mistakes that I see from people that are just starting out is not being able to manage their finances. And what I mean by that is they look at cash flow. Oh man, this is great. I'm rocking and rolling. At the end of the year, we meet with their CPA or someone. They finally look at a P&L and they're like, oh, God, I didn't really make money. Yeah, you're banking on cash flow. I get that. You have fixed costs that you don't really pay attention to. What's your net at the end of the year? So I would say you have to be really conscious of that and almost somewhat of an accountant. And if anybody's out there listening that's going to college, accounting is something that'll never be wrong. So if you want to take an accounting course, by all means, it's going to help you with anything you do. And if you're like me or a bunch of people I know that can't stand math, sorry, you're going to have to learn it if you want to run a business.
Yep. Yeah. Google has a lot of the answers, but not all of them. And so do some of your homework on your own. Ask them about product selection. Find out top threes, interior, exterior, different types of services that you can provide. Maybe understand your A grade type products versus your B grade type products. Consider your geography and your climate, right? I mean, Phoenix and Vegas are very, very similar. Salt Lake and Denver are different than different environments, different pests, different types of pressure. And then manage your finances. And I won't go into like too much detail, but I did share earlier that we spent a good amount of money in 2020, just this previous year, and it was a lot. It was a lot, and I've always really appreciated the terms that Target has given us, you've given us. I know sometimes when we do the bulk ordering and it's the 100K here or 150K there for some of the pre-order type stuff, there's kind of some built-in terms on that, but yeah, you run out of cash and you're hosed, right? And so that flexibility in being able to pay for us has allowed us to be able to take that cash that we would have used to pay you guys or anyone else, reinvest it, grow the company, and we always get square, and so we really appreciate that. How about I mean, as we're kind of starting to round this out a little bit, Robert, as far as education goes, and you mentioned you were in college when you got recruited to get into the pest industry, but what are some of the things along the way would you say have prepared you for your role now and the success that you're having and that you're experiencing? What has there been any one or any course or anything along the path that has helped you to either think a different way or just to kind of keep sharp?
Yeah, so starting out my career, gosh, I was 23 years old running a company, so I was young and running a company. I had two mentors back then. They both have passed, unfortunately, but I learned more from those two than anybody else in my entire career about business. They didn't care about pest control. They did it. They owned a pest control company. I was a GM for them. They didn't care about pest control. They loved.
So they were businessmen.
Absolutely, they were businessmen, and they taught me more. I was actually just having a conversation with my wife this weekend. I've learned more from those two than I have anybody else in my entire career. And that was,
wow.
We don't need to go into my age, but that was a long time ago. And it still resonates with me today. There's things I look at or situations I encounter where I revert back to some of the things that they said. They taught me how to read a financial statement, how to dissect the P&L. I mean, they taught me how to negotiate with manufacturers or vendors. They taught me how to write contracts, read contracts. So for me, I'm not one that goes to books per se, but more people with experience. There's a lot of really good people in this industry, in the service industry as a whole, whether it be pest control, food service, whatever it may be. That experience is invaluable. You're going to learn more from your experiences than you ever will in college, going through textbooks or like that. And I'm a very visual or hands-on learner. So for me, if I have a mentor or something like that, and to be honest with you, that's what I try and do for people that are close to me or that want to grow their business or something like that. I try and take that mentorship role and show them what I've been taught, and hopefully I can pass along those experiences that I've had. So I don't go to textbooks per se, if you will. Now, granted, unfortunately, due to my position, I do have to be up to date on the things that are out there. The 5 billion.
Lots of labels. If you ever have trouble falling asleep, you just whip one of those out and it helps you immediately, you know?
Oh, yeah. It perks you right up, just like coffee. It perks you right up. So, yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of products that come out. Usually on an annual basis, we have to know the label, we have to know the law for the state that we're operating in so that we can help our communities out there. We do a lot of conference calls and webinars with our manufacturers so that we're up to date on the information that they want designated through the field. So that's where my continuing education comes into play. Plus, I'm mandated I have to do, I think it's 24 hours a year or something like that for my ACE credential. So I have to keep up reading articles and or when I do trainings for customers or I'm involved in a training. So there's a lot of resources out there for our industry to maintain that continuous education. Granted, we're mandated we have to have some to keep our credentials, which is somewhat monotonous, but you can always take away a little bit of something from anybody you listen, if you really listen. And I've always tried to do that. Not always successful, but I always try. And if I can just take away a little snippet of something from what somebody's trying to tell me, I never take it for granted. Because if you sit in your position, regardless of what you're doing, and you think you know it all, you've got it all figured out, and that's it, that's the end all. And trust me, I was there when I was 23, I'm running a company, and I'm like, I've got it all, and I know everything. Boy, was I wrong. Daily am I wrong. So I would say just, keep an open mind. Keep an open mind and listen to what people have to say, whether you think it may be foolish or what have you. Some of those foolish things are the ones that are going to be the most valuable to you in the future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds, that's the problem with knowing everything. If you know everything, then you know everything and there's nothing left to learn. And so, you already know everything. It sounds like early on in your career, you had two incredible mentors that continues to be a blessing and a value to you today. It sounds like there's also, with some of just who you are and your credentials, there's required types of continuing education to be able to maintain that. Sounds like, there's lots of reading as far as being able to keep up on rules, regulations, labels, changes. I mean, you start to memorize those things, but every year they've got this revision and this revision and this revision. And you're like, I was thinking about the label from 12 years ago, it sounds like you guys are on calls a lot and also different types of webinars. I mean, as we round this thing out then, Robert, I mean, any other thoughts that you'd like to leave with listeners? Any other, words of wisdom from kind of the things that we've touched on today?
Well, one thing I would say is that if you're in our space, if you're in the pest control industry, whether you're a technician or a business owner, elevate what you're doing. Don't belittle what you do. Our industry has been bashed since I can remember. I mean, you look at John Goodman and arachnophobia. Hey, here comes the bug man. That's not who we are. We're out there protecting homes, and honestly, we're saving lives. I think you really need to own that and step up your professionalism, continue it, maintain it, and don't sacrifice your quality. And continue to learn. If you can do those things, you'll be successful.
No, I love that. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, we can all be a part of, especially in the pest space, just elevating that game, right? High tide raises all boats. And I think we've got a long way to go. I think we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. Robert, if people have got more questions, well, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Do they find you on LinkedIn? Do they, show up at your 20-year anniversary tomorrow for dinner with you? What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, I will say, do not show up on the 20-year anniversary. That may be my last day.
Yeah.
So no, if people want to reach out to me, they can call me on my cell phone. It's 602-284-4003. I'm happy to help. Whether you're in our space or not, doesn't matter. I'm happy to help. I am on LinkedIn. Don't ask me how to find me. I'm not a big social media guy. I also am on Twitter, but I don't think I've ever tweeted. But my brother he's much younger than I am. He makes fun of me all the time because I'm never. So, or you can email me if you wanted to. My email is Robert.Snyder, SNYDER @target-specialty.com. Granted, it's long. I'm trying to see if we can cut that out to like @TSP or something simple, because that is a mouthful. But
and the hyphen, and you got the hyphen in there. I feel the same way about Moxie Pest Control. No one knows how to spell Moxie anyway. And then it's, 2 more words after that. It's like, gosh, let's figure that out.
Exactly. But no, I'm happy to talk to anybody. Reach out. By all means, I'm available. So I'm happy to help.
Awesome. Robert, incredible. Thank you for your time. I know it's super limited, super valuable. Thanks for sharing it with me, sharing it with the listeners. Really appreciate you having you on. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope today was good and positive and valuable. Tune in, subscribe for more great episodes. We'll start dropping them weekly to hear from leaders in their space and in business, more great people just like Robert. So thanks again, Robert, for being on.
Well, thanks for having me. I also appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Multiply You podcast. You'll see us again soon when you subscribe for future episodes.